This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
Well, never a dull moment here in the Valley of the Sports. We've got the Cactus League. We've got the Cardinals making moves. The Suns trying to stay out of the NBA play-in tournament. And the end of life for the Pac-12 this week as the Pac-12 tournament tips off play with the Sun Devils and the Wildcats. Let's get a perspective about all these things. A guy who has a great perspective on life and all the things that go with it. And Bill Walton as well. Let's get Dave Pasch in here to the Extra Point podcast to discuss, I think, the busiest man right now in sports media. Dave, what does your calendar look like for the next month?
Yeah, it's actually not as bad going forward. It's mostly NBA for the rest of the way. But, the busiest time for me is always November, December, because I got 4 different things going on with college football, NBA, obviously the Cardinals, and then college basketball. But it's been busy. I was just in LA at 4 games in 4 days. Now, I didn't have to get on a plane or even leave my hotel, but UCLA and USC, and then 2 Laker games. So that was a busy stretch. I've got a little time here before my next game, which will be Sunday. It's a Suns game, but it's in Milwaukee.
Well, and you were in Los Angeles and able to call the Wildcats over the weekend and saw kind of like you administered the last rites, I think, to the Pac-12. We'll start calling you Father Pasch here. What are your emotions as you saw the regular season come to an end for the Pac-12 and know times there are changing?
Yeah, it was surreal walking out of Pauley Pavilion and Galen Center, particularly Pauley Pavilion. It has more history. But the reason I say that is I'm walking out of there thinking I may never be back here. A, there's no more Pac-12, and B, we don't have the Big Ten. So, the Big Ten is on other networks. So it was weird. I tried not to think about it too much because I didn't want to make it about me. I wanted to make it about the broadcast. I said this on the air, so I might as well just say it to you. I've already probably ticked off some of the administrators and might as well just continue. I think ultimately, Mark, this goes beyond athletics. There's an arrogance amongst a lot of the administrators in some of the Pac-12 schools that thought, well, this is just going to continue because we're the Pac-12. We're the Conference of Champions. We have high academic institutions. So we don't really have to adjust, meaning the portal, grad transfers, NIL. We don't have to be so football focused. We can continue to push academics as being the most important thing. And the problem is they got behind. Athletics started to struggle, football in particular, until this year with Washington making the college football playoff. It had obviously been a while. And here we are, where the Pac-12 is going away because a lot of these other schools realized, hey, in particular USC and UCLA, we need to move or this is going to implode. And once they left, that started the domino, and we're left with nothing.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And if people are going to be mad at Dave Pasch, get mad at me as well, because it didn't have to happen. And I think kind of like the newspaper business, the Pac-12 died a very arrogant death. And it makes me sad because I've been on the West Coast since 2006 covering sports, and actually back to 2000 in Medford, Oregon, covering the Oregon State Beavers and the Oregon Ducks. And to see it rise and to see it fall has been stunning. What becomes of West Coast football and basketball, in your opinion, starting next year?
Well, football, I think, still could be in good shape because at least you have 4 programs in the Big Ten. Kalen DeBoer has left a good foundation and culture there in Seattle. I think Dan Lanning's excellent at Oregon, and I always think they're going to support football there. I'm a little worried about UCLA and USC, in particular UCLA. They do not have people got on Mick Cronin, the basketball coach, when he said UCLA doesn't have NIL. He's right. They have a bad NIL setup at UCLA. And that's, I think, one of the reasons Chip Kelly left to be an offensive coordinator at Ohio State. It was such a battle. It's not worth fighting. USC, now they've got a better setup, but they've got a terrible schedule, and they're losing Caleb Williams. So how football-wise next year, they have to play LSU and Notre Dame and a Big Ten schedule. So next year could be rough for them. Basketball, who knows? I just think ultimately, now I think Arizona will be okay. They have great support there. and they're in the Big 12. I worry a little bit about some of these other schools that maybe don't have the support and also the travel. What happens, maybe not to basketball and football, but what happens to, the other sports? Do sports like soccer and volleyball, do some of these sports become club sports because of the money now that you're going to have to pay for all the travel?
Yeah, it's certainly, it seems like at some point football is going to have to break away here, and maybe even men's basketball. As far as your schedule goes, will it be more, I guess, in the Southeast doing SEC games? Do you have a feel for where we will see you calling college games next year?
Well, football will be similar to what it's been. We just won't have Pac-12 games or Big Ten. So, I'm all over for college football. It just depends on the week. College basketball, I don't know yet. We haven't really talked about that yet. It's next year, so far away. So, to be determined in terms of what I'll be doing and where.
All right. What about you and Bill Walton? Is there a chance maybe you and Bill Walton call the NBA? I thought that would be that'd be fun for a long time.
I did NBA. My first NBA games actually were with Bill. He claims it never happened.
Did he wear a suit?
He did. He did wear a suit. I think back then his hands worked. He could tie a tie. That's part of the reason he doesn't wear a shirt and tie, is because he can't. His fingers. He can't tie a tie. He can't button a shirt. Somebody has to button it for him. Because he fell all the time and he fought all the time, so his hands don't work right. So, but I don't know. I mean, my hope obviously is that Bill and I can continue to do games some way, shape, or form. Obviously, it won't be in the Pac-12, which is what we've been for the last 12 years associated with.
Well, it's been fantastic, and I really hope it continues. I hope at some point maybe we get Wolfley and Walton in the same booth as you and watch you kind of play referee like a steel cage match. That would be fun. A lot would have to line up for that. But speaking of Wolfley, speaking of the Arizona Cardinals, one of your other day jobs here, what do you make so far of what the Cardinals have done as far as free agency goes? Defense yesterday, and then looks like they got a running back today.
Yeah, as of the taping of this conversation, I like it. I think they clearly looked at the previous regime and a lot of the draft picks and said these were not good picks. But that happens a lot. When you have new leadership, they tend to move on from people and players that were here before. And I think they put a premium on getting solid players who are available. I mean, most of the guys that they picked up on defense have played a lot of games in a short amount of time, which means they're healthy. The two defensive linemen, I think, both played in each game the last 2 years. That's hard to do nowadays, playing all 17. So you're getting solid guys, maybe not spectacular, but they're spending money. Now, it may not be huge money, but still, I think one of the two guys got $30 million, 20 guaranteed based on reports. So you're talking about them spending money for solid players. My guess is I don't know if they're going to make a big splash in free agency for a certain player. I still think that doesn't work long term. If you're championship ready and you need one more piece, I get it. But I think ultimately you still build your roster through the draft, and the Cardinals are in that building phase. So I think if you're going to see splash players, it's going to be in the draft, not in free agency.
How do you like Hollywood Brown's chances to return to the roster next year?
I'd be guessing, but I would hope he would be here. I think he's proven he's more than just a deep threat. And the question comes down to, what does he demand? Do you view him as, how does he fit your team? Is he a 1? Is he a 2? I would have to think most teams in the league, and probably the Cardinals also, look at him as a 2, meaning he's not a guy that, is going to go out and catch 120 passes for 1,300 yards. That's a 1 to me. A Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, those are 1s. I'm not sure Hollywood's in that group as he gets older. So, but I still think he's very valuable. Just, can you get him, for number 2 money? I think you can, unless somebody just comes out and blows him away on another team.
Right, and the other big question is, would he, if he did come back, if you were to team him with Marvin Harrison Jr., what that would look like? Do you feel like that is the direction it's trending for the draft on draft day for the Cardinals, or do you think the phone rings and somebody comes up and gets a quarterback and maybe they look at a receiver elsewhere or look at the offensive line there?
The good thing is they have options, and clearly Monty Ossenfort's proving he's willing to exhaust those and identify a player or two and try to figure out, okay, what's the best way to get this player? If they identify, a left tackle, do you have to make that choice at 4? Can you move back and take a left tackle. If you identify a receiver, okay, which of the three, because I think there's three there that could be, and there might be guys further down the draft. I think Keon Coleman's a guy down, further down the draft that could be a one in the NFL. So, do you make that move later? There are some people I've talked to that think Rome Odunze is the best receiver. Now, I had Ohio State's bowl game, but Marvin Harrison didn't play, but everybody says he's just an amazing person, along with clearly being a phenomenal player. So there's options certainly for the Cardinals. I think a lot's going to depend on what happens in the first three. If it's three quarterbacks, maybe you don't get as many phone calls, but if there's two quarterbacks out of the three, and Jaden Daniels or Drake May is still there, I would have to think there are going to be some phone calls to the Cardinals for number 4.
How much do you get hit up by scouts and other NFL personnel, front office personnel, because of the amount of college football you see and get your brain picked for opinions on players?
I have conversations throughout the year with people, that I am friends with or run into, either involved with the Cardinals or on other teams just because I work with them or know them or have known them, or they used to be with the Cardinals, just conversations. I don't think anybody's taking my advice. I mean, I'm not a scout. I didn't play. So, but they might say, hey, well, did you meet with this person? What did you think? Or, tell me your experience when you've been around this program. What do you see in this program in terms of how players, they are treated there? And, that does happen from time to time, where I'll get asked about a certain player or a team or a coach. That's happened several times this offseason.
Is your fantasy football team unstoppable? Like, should I solicit you for advice next year?
No, I don't think I can do that. Actually, anytime anybody ever asks me about that, I'm like, and I'm not supposed to, I don't do any of that. And I'm not supposed to. So no, I usually don't mess around with that.
I actually quit doing fantasy football. It was too much work. And then I interviewed for a job and didn't know anything about the Jets running back situation. So I have to do it. I don't like doing it. It's too much maintenance, but it's also fun, water cooler and talk around the office.
I still don't get how it works. My son plays it. Other people I know play it. I still don't understand all the numbers, but yeah, it's obviously great for the fans. It's just not for me.
Right. No, it's not for me either, but I do it out of necessity. Before we let you go, I want to get your opinion on the Phoenix Suns. I mean, you do college sports, you do the Cardinals, the NFL, and it's all NBA for you now. So what, as you look at their path here to the playoffs, what needs to happen for this team to stay out of the play-in tournament and really turn the corner here and make us all believe they're a contender?
Well, the biggest thing, it's obvious, is health. They need the big three to be healthy to avoid the play-in, and at least they're healthy now. I just, can that continue? You've got 17 or 18 games left. I'd have to look at the home road split. I'd have to look at, how many plus 500s. I haven't yet. I will before Sunday. I'll have all that info before my next game in Milwaukee as to what's left. How many of those games are over 500 teams?
It's a lot. I think it's the hardest in the NBA. The rest of the schedule.
I knew it was up there. And obviously, you got Boston and Milwaukee this week. You just had Cleveland, although they were down 2 key guys. I think the bench is the bench, and that concerns me. The bench, they try to address in the offseason. They try to change it in season. Depending on where Royce O'Neal fits as a starter on the bench, at least you've got him, and then you've got some other pieces, but they're just not consistent. I think you look at the top of the standings, the best teams in the league have very good benches. But I think the Suns are talented enough that they can go deep in the playoffs, whether they're starting in the play-in or not. It's not like the play-in's a death sentence. You just, if you're 7 or 8, you win 1 game. And if you're 7, you win a home game. If you're 9 or 10, it's a little bit harder. You got to win 2. Obviously, you don't want to be in that situation. But, the Lakers were in it last year. It didn't seem to impact them. Miami was in it last year. They went to the finals. So they're certainly talented enough with Durant and Booker and Beal. But, are they better than last year when they got beat in the second round by Denver? That's the other thing. Who do they play? Do they get, if they play the Clippers in the first round this year, if they're healthy, that's a different Clipper team than they saw last year when they had nobody but Westbrook. I don't think they want to see Denver. Karl Anthony Towns is just coming back and you get Minnesota in the first round. Okay, that's different than, if you play a healthy, loaded New Orleans team in the first round with a healthy Zion and Ingram. So much of it's matchup, so much of it is health. So, but they are talented enough to make a move and make a run.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to watch your call on Sunday. Last thing, are you selling Bill Walton Memoriam T-shirts now? It looked like on your social media there might be a little side business.
No, I just made one. I just made one for last week. No, I haven't thought about whether to get more of those. I certainly wouldn't sell them. But
I would buy one.
Okay.
I'd buy one.
How much? How much are you going to pay?
Hats are going for like $50 now. I mean, it's just stunning every time I take my kids out to buy any type of merchandise. So I $25? It doesn't have to be that great a quality. I just like the shirt.
Yeah. Let me think about that. Okay. But no, the plan, I just made one. I actually had several people ask me already, like, hey, can I get one of those? So I got to think about what I'm going to do there.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing what the conclusion is. We look forward to hearing your call on Sunday and just seeing your next adventure. It's always fun to follow you on social media and see what you're up to. So get some rest. We'll see you on TV on Sunday in Milwaukee, and thanks for spending some time with us today.
All right, my man. Anytime.
This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.